So you and your spouse have made plans. You got good jobs and you're excited about starting a family. But suddenly your whole world is turned upside down. You lose your job. Your family aspirations fall apart. Just like that, you're back at square one. Now firm in the clutches of grief, you got to do the hard work of creating a meaningful life. What do you do now? On today's episode, we're going to talk about how Courtney and I experienced exactly this type of hardship. And we're going to talk to you about what we've gone through and what we're doing to get back to what matters. Stay tuned. We have a very impactful episode coming up for you today on the Curiosity Matters podcast. Welcome to the Curiosity Matters podcast. I'm Floyd Wesley, and I'm here with Courtney, my partner, my spouse.
Hey guys.
What's up? What's going on?
You know, just getting through everything. As you shared, it's been a hard time. We've got to restructure a lot of things in our lives, including like the perspective that we have, because as we shared, we had a lot of big plans. If you listen to the first couple of episodes, you'll hear we had a lot of big plans for this year.
Right.
And things didn't go as planned.
Right. So that kind of just takes us right into what we were talking about. Obviously, plans change. And in order to really understand the scope of that, well, I guess we should talk about a little bit about exactly what went on. Obviously, like we talked about, we had a lot of plans. Things were going very well for us.
Let's talk about what happened. It's hard to talk about, but that's what we're here to do.
Right.
So, just like you was talking about in the intro, everything was going really well. We were excited. I was pregnant. Everything was going well in the pregnancy. We go to our 9-month appointments, talking about our birth plan and how to prepare to get to the birth center and all of those many small details, because everything had gone well until the ultrasound.
Right.
I will never forget the moment where they couldn't find the heartbeat. They called in another midwife. She couldn't find the heartbeat. And I just broke down and started crying because they didn't want to say for sure that she was gone, but I knew it based off of the way that they were acting.
Right.
And it just was like everything just came crashing down. Like, we just had our baby shower. We had literally just did the paternity or maternity pictures the weekend before. And it was a very sobering moment to know that no matter how much you plan, no matter how much things seem they may be going in one direction, life can just take you in a completely new direction.
Right. And that's one of the things that I think lends to some of the grief. So obviously what we're talking about is grief, loss. When you are dealing with the initial shock, I don't know if that's considered as being a part of the grief process, but if not, I feel like maybe it should be, because the initial shock has to first wear off before the flood of emotions even begins.
Yeah, I know the first thing I felt was denial. Like, I remember thinking like, well, maybe they're wrong. Maybe it's just their machine that's messed up. Like, this can't be right. Like, I couldn't accept it. And even I remember calling my friend, and she was right there with me on that denial train. Like, nah, girl, they don't know what they're talking about. Just like, everything's going to be fine. When you get to the hospital, you go back, they're going to see that the baby's fine. And I was like, yeah, no, they're wrong. They're wrong. Because I was in denial. Like, that's one of the 5 stages of grief is denial, because I just didn't want it to be true.
Right. Yeah. So the initial shock sets in. Obviously, then overcoming the initial shock. That, from the transition from the initial shock and into the phase of acceptance. I mean, it's like a roller coaster, right, that happens between that time.
It's like a never-ending roller coaster, because even still sometimes I find myself slipping back into that state of denial. Like, this can't be, like, it can't be, like, it just doesn't make any sense. I see people having babies around me all the time, and I've never known anyone to experience a loss like this. Like, it's not like I was drinking. It's not like I was doing drugs. Like, it's babies born with hard drugs in their system every day. And so it's like sometimes I'm on that roller coaster right at the beginning, right at that denial stage. Like, no, I don't want this to be true. I want my baby back.
Yeah, and I want to look at it for a moment from the perspective of, from my perspective, obviously, as a man. I mean, in the situation, a big part of, for me, it's the shock. Because, first of all, the first thing that kind of kicks in, I feel, instinctively, as a man, for me, in that situation, was I gotta basically try to maintain. Like, it was like the first thing I think that occurred to me as a man was I have to have the strength right now. So for a part of, there was a part of me that did not really, could not, I felt at the time, especially early on, really face what I was feeling as much, because out of a feeling of obligation. I mean,
yeah, I could see that.
So, I mean,
and I was worried about that for you, but I just didn't know how to, like, oh man, it's already like dealing with pregnancy hormones is hard enough, and then that plus the loss of a baby, like, I felt like I was just in a freaking emotional roller coaster. Like, now that I finally am on the other side of those flood of hormones, I feel like I can be a better support to you. But I know at the initial onset, I was like no help to you, and I just was feeling so bad because I knew you needed that help, but I also knew, like, this was grief that neither one of us knew how to navigate.
Neither one of us knew how to navigate. The shock for me of, I mean, it was, a lot of it was just that I had been preparing myself mentally for a certain type of a future. There was a lot of shock, really, for me. It was almost like as if, I mean, it's just like shit, losing in the Super Bowl. You know, if a team gets all the way to the Super Bowl, it hurts more than a team that sucks the whole season.
That's a great analogy.
So then there was that, because it was like, well, what now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then, I mean, I'm trying to go to work. I'm trying to maintain my life as if everything is normal.
And it's not.
And of course, going around other men, I also felt like, you know, there was a lot of guys, actually, there's quite a few people that told me, well, you know, everything happens for a reason. Like, I don't know. Like, sometimes I felt like,
that's so
and at that
shitty.
time, that made me feel more uncomfortable just at work, because I felt like, what are you saying? Like, that also made me feel like, was y'all planning to fire me this whole time? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it just kind of was like, you don't want to hear them type of things. That was like, it was more difficult than I wanted to admit at that time, how it was affecting me, my attitude at work, and it's just my ability to cognitively be present at work, you know, especially for the sake of my subordinates. I mean, you know, I didn't really want to talk to them, and definitely didn't want to deal with some of their problems and nuances that go on, you know, just as them being regular human beings, you know. I just wanted to basically get through the day.
Yeah, I can understand that. And it's like, I don't know how anyone can be expected to experience a loss like that and still perform in any way. Like it's crazy to me, the drastic difference between the way your workplace responded and the way mine did.
True.
It's such a drastic difference, but it really just goes to show, like, it really matters how you build your life and who you include in it, including the place you work, because that has an impact on everything in your life. But to circle back, like, when it comes to grief, I thought I had a cool relationship with grief. Like, okay, I know how to grieve when I lose people. I know it's gonna suck, but I know how to go through this process. And usually that would entail me thinking about the memories that I had with that person and how I valued those memories. But how do you grieve a baby that you never created memories with? Like, I've got to grieve for what could have been and not what was.
Right.
And I think that's been the hardest part of this for me, is everything that we dreamed about together, all of those nights where we was up together talking about, like I was teasing you about changing her diaper, and all of the things that we had prepared to become parents. And I mean, shoot, we had an initial shock of even learning that I was pregnant and then getting over that shock. So it's been literally an emotional roller coaster.
And I mean, I'm not going, speaking of that, there's a part of me that felt for sure almost like I was gauging what I'm feeling against what other people in different situations might be feeling. Like you had alluded to, we didn't really have any time like that. So then I began to ask myself, like, should I be feeling this? What should I be feeling? Because as opposed to someone who maybe lost a child in a school shooting or something like that.
Man, I was thinking the same thing, because that Uvalde school shooting happened the same week we lost her. And so then I started to feel guilty for how much grief that I was feeling, all of the sadness I felt. Like, well, dang, I didn't lose my baby in a horrific way. She wasn't murdered. I started to, like you said, think about, like, well, maybe my grief ain't justified. It's people out there who's lost their babies in horrible ways. Maybe I should be grateful that she didn't suffer. And that kind of fucked me up a little bit to even have those thoughts.
Well, so that's one of those things. So first of all, there is no should or shouldn't we. When it comes to you grieving, you're trying to get your life back on track. You got to do what you got to do, you know, as long as you don't go out and hurt nobody or nothing.
I mean, yeah.
But other than that, is there a should or shouldn't? I don't know. I think these are natural things that are a part of the grief process that come up, but that also can be beneficial and therapeutic in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But depending on, how we look at it. I like to analyze things like that. I feel that it helps to analyze what my feelings are, what it would be in a different type of circumstance. There's no real answer to any of those questions that are hypothetical.
I agree. And I feel like it's a healthy exercise to go through because it helps keep a healthy amount of empathy. Because if you can put yourself in a different situation and think like, what would my emotions be if the circumstances were different? Then you can look at somebody else and be able to empathize with their different circumstances. Because like the young woman that your sister introduced us to who also lost her baby, I don't want to say her name, just I ain't trying to put her out there, but her circumstances were completely different. Like, she knows why she lost her baby. We have no idea what happened, but I can empathize with her because like it's a completely different set of circumstances, but she still experienced a similar loss. And so while she's dealing with her emotions differently, I can empathize with her. So I think that's a healthy exercise because, like, I don't know about you. Well, one, this is something that I did want to bring up, but there's been such a different response to both of us as parents who've lost our baby. Like, people are, like, smothering me in, hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? Like, I keep getting all these calls from all these different people, and it's like an overwhelming amount of specific type of support. Whereas, I don't know, like, from my perspective, it don't seem like people are even coming at you that same way. Like, it's like they don't even think about supporting you through the loss like that.
No, and you know what? That is something that a lot of that stems from, and this is something that I've thought about. It just stems from our preconditioning as people living in the Western civilization. As people, we a lot of times look at men, we classify men as being a certain type of way. We classify women as being a certain type of way. But in a lot of ways, there's some truth to it. But I feel that it's really more of each person has an individual type of way of dealing with these.
I agree.
So, you're right, because on one hand, just as an individual, I kind of do better by kind of, don't want to say internalizing, but I like working my way through my emotional problems. You know what I mean? It does not help me as much to get so much outside feedback. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I'm dealing with it the best way that I can in the moment.
I get what you're saying, and I do, like, I also like to, like, internally reflect on my emotions and kind of sit with them myself before I actually discuss them with anyone else. But what I was talking about is I've noticed, like, just even like the doctors, like, for instance, the hospital we went to, the midwife who helped us has called me every 2 weeks to extend her condolences and to check on me. Not one time during those calls did she ask about you.
Yeah, and just look at, like...
And it's like, I didn't ask for that. I don't need you to, like, do that, to smother me in that type of support. But because I am a woman, and I guess it is expected that I'm going to have a much more emotional response. Even, like, people are just, like, that's just how people have been socialized to respond to a couple in this situation, it seems.
It is, because also, think about, compare this same issue, this same thing, anything, pregnancy related, and just look at how the conversation tends to go. Because
if you would get a man, for example, start talking about abortion or talking about I'm pro-life, well, what do women say? You don't have no say in the matter. You don't have ovaries. So
But
there's that. Women are the ones that carry the baby. So, but when men talk about in society about their aspect on a pregnancy, people tend to kind of push them out of the conversation.
that's
You're
fair.
not
That's
the
a
one
fair
that carries a
evaluation.
baby.
I mean, I don't agree with that, but it is definitely what happens. To me, I feel like shit, it's our baby. If I'm pregnant and I expect you to help me raise this baby, then we in it no matter what, together, no matter what happens. Like, this is a us thing. I just happen to be the vessel carrying it, but this is a us thing.
I mean, and this conversation is starting to actually get kind of on a whole nother tangent now. It's we didn't really kind of gone all the way into more of a philosophical.
But I mean, but this is, we're talking about how we got through our grief.
Yeah.
And to me, this is how I have been able to deal with it, because it's a completely different type of grief. And it's been very hard having to deal with people constantly in my face asking me about, how are you feeling? Are you okay? Like it's just been, I don't know. It's been a very sobering experience, like I said before. But one thing that I just want to add here is I'm very grateful that I did not have to go through this alone. That is one thing that I can say about this experience. It would be earth-shattering to have to go through this alone. So I just want to thank you for being there with me.
Of course. Well, I mean, yeah, now that you say that, yeah. So, that's, I feel, what's been special for us in this situation is we've had each other, we've stuck together. I mean, I've had people basically say they're surprised that, we have gone through this together. But people go through stuff, I mean, it's a part of what you sign up for, right?
Well, that, and it showed me a different side of you, and I'm sure you've seen a different side of me. And I feel like our foundation is stronger for it.
Me too. I think we should take a quick break, and we can come back and talk a little bit more about this topic, and I think we should delve into a little bit more on the side of what we're doing going forward in terms of what's our outlook,
Okay.
going forward.
All right. We'll talk to you all in a bit.
We are going to continue our discussion about coping with loss and our discussion about grief. And speaking of loss, I ended up losing my job as well as the loss on top of compounding other losses. So, but I think about it a lot. I think about it quite often about, what happened? And it's really a combination of things. On one hand, I was ready to kind of wanting to move on anyway, in a sense, as we were going through the pregnancy, but going through the pregnancy, going through the stillbirth and all of those things, it did create some challenges for me, I think, that maybe I wasn't being so cognizant of at that time. But either way, going forward, like I said, sometimes, as they say, God closes a door, opens up another window, or closes the door and opens the window, right? Or something like that. So, I'm looking at it as an opportunity to build on something going forward that it could be better off and more beneficial going, in the future.
Yeah, and I feel like anytime things like this happen where it's like a multiple things are lost or it's like a big shift in life, you have one or two ways you can look at it. You can look at it like, dang, everything sucks, and have a pity party for yourself, which, I mean, it's very tempting, let me tell y'all. I understand. Or you can look at it like, well, I mean, I ain't got nowhere to go but up. And on my way up, there's multiple opportunities, multiple choices, multiple lanes to choose from. So right now, like, I'm looking at this like, okay, we lost our baby. That's something that we were expecting. I was expecting to be a mother right now. I was expecting to have to figure out how to balance motherhood and career and all of the other things that we were doing and taking care of all of those things. You were expecting to be having to figure out how to be a father and balance work and being able to actually be a part of our child's life with as much as they had you working. And so now we don't have to figure that out. We got to figure out something completely different. And I mean, shoot, it ain't no secret to you, but I was not a fan of them. I did not like the way that they treated you because you deserve so much better. And if they wasn't about to recognize, they will now.
Yeah, and you brought up our friend that we have that had experienced a similar circumstance. And I mean, sometimes you see when I first kind of started talking to her, she was telling me about her experience. I was judging her a little bit, I guess you could say, in early on, because I just was like, man, you taking this to the max. It's been some time now for her situation. So we kind of was dealing with a fresh wound, right? And so her, on the other hand, this is something that she's really taken on as a part of her identity going forward. And so, but of course, over time, and I mean, we talked about this, and I said, I don't know, maybe I thought of it the wrong way in the beginning, because at first I automatically kind of thought this might be unhealthy, the way that she's handling this situation. But then again, now, like I said, I thought about it again and figured, well, like we talked about before, everybody's going to grieve in their own way. So she's doing what's best for her, what she's feeling that she needs to do. Everybody, you got to just do what feels like normal. To try to get back to just feeling your normal self. You know what I mean? And whatever makes you feel like you.
Yeah, that I completely agree. Like for us, like throughout our relationship, we have always taken trips. We've always traveled. I mean, that's one of the things that we've always done. So.
And then we just jumped up and took a little trip.
Exactly. Like that's like one of the things we just was like, we've taken 2 trips since we lost her in May. And that's to help ourselves get back to feeling normal. Whether we realize that's what we was trying to get back to or not when we made those decisions. Looking back, I know for me, I was just trying to get back to feeling normal. Aside from the weight gain from pregnancy, aside from the hormonal changes, like I just wanted to get back to feeling like me a little bit. And losing her, I felt like it made that journey even harder to get back to feeling like myself.
Right. So, are you feeling better now?
I mean, I definitely feel much more like myself than I have. Like when we got back from Portland, I feel like that's when I started to feel more like me, because, like, I don't know, our conversations just started to lend themselves towards a different direction. And like I said, like, I just started to feel like, okay, I can see a way forward now. I can see what the next level can entail for me. I can dream and I can hope again. Because, I never even realized it, but yeah, that's what was missing. I had stopped hoping. because the last thing I hoped for was our baby.
Right.
And so hope started to feel dangerous to me. So I stopped. I just was like, you know what? I'm going to just deal with what I have, and I'm not going to hope for nothing more, because hoping can lead to hurt. And so I stopped hoping. But when we got back from the Portland trip, I just started to feel grateful again. Like everything that we experienced on that trip, just when we got home, I just was like, you know what? I am grateful for everything that I have and everything that we've lost, because we're still here. I mean, aside from the fact that we lost our baby, I'm just happy that I made it through childbirth healthily. Right. It's Black women who don't make it through childbirth healthily all the time. Right. And that would have just been, like, I think about you and I'm like, that would have just been too much if something had happened to me as well. So I'm just grateful that we had just what we could bear and nothing more.
Well, I feel that the Portland trip was a turning point of sorts, you say, for us. I mean, that was an interesting situation. Very spontaneous and kind of shoot from the hip, jump in a car, driving, I don't know how many miles. I didn't even see.
Like 1,500?
Didn't even check how many miles exactly were we even driving. And obviously the experience of being there was forgettable. I mean, it didn't give me nothing but sick. And we still was a little bit sick after we got back.
I'm still trying to get back to 100% health from that trip. But it was a very big contrast to the San Diego trip, right? The San Diego trip was amazing. We was just living our best life. And it was definitely a vacation that we needed, but it was a vacation. Yeah. Like, it was just like, we are disconnected from reality. We out here living good, chilling, doing all the fun things. We were able to kind of escape our grief, escape reality a little bit on that trip. Right. On this Portland trip, it was the opposite. Because as soon as we got there, it was like, did we make a mistake? Like, look at all this graffiti. The downtown was trashed.
The consequences.
It was crazy.
Was really the biggest mystery for me. And really kind of one of the bigger aspects that kind of gave me, I feel, a reason to really think about it, the significance of that trip, because it was almost like maybe that was what I needed at that time. I don't know. Maybe it was necessary, but maybe it was unnecessary. Maybe it was necessary. I mean, I do feel like it just was such a cage rattling experience.
Yes.
That it it's sometimes that you just need something like that. You just need something to just totally step outside the box, do something that you didn't even think it through. And yeah.
I mean, from that perspective, yes, it definitely was a cage rattling experience. It definitely woke us both up. But I also feel like it gave us a new appreciation for the life that we've built thus far, because we so often are so caught up in looking forward to what we want to build that we don't always take stock of what we've already built. And so, like, I remember when we got back from San Diego, we was looking around home like, man, we ain't got nothing around here compared to out there. Right. Like, We ain't got the shopping opportunities like the amazing restaurants, and we was kind of like down at home a little bit.
Right.
But when we got back from Portland, it was more like, I'm so happy to be home.
Glad to
I
be
love
here.
it here.
Yeah.
So I feel like not only was it a cage rattling experience, but it was an experience we needed to just look around and be like, you know what? I'm grateful for the life that we've built thus far. And for me, it just made me excited again to get back to building the life that we want to have in the future. But also, like we've been talking about, like enjoying the life that we've built thus far, because yes, you've lost your job and I can't imagine what that must feel like to you. But we have positioned ourselves well enough to where that it really didn't do nothing but give you time and space to think about what you want to do next.
Right. Right. It did open up new horizons. You know, this is actually a side note, a little disclaimer. For anybody out there who listens to Curiosity Matters podcast, if you are driving in the state of Wyoming, do the speed limit.
Please.
Do the speed limit in Wyoming. Do not speed if you ever have to drive in Wyoming. They will ticket you.
No matter if it's 2 miles or 10.
And they be out there. Like, that's all they got to do. So, maybe, I mean, you know, you get a lot of time to think, I guess, driving from Colorado to Portland, Oregon. Because, I mean, you're driving, obviously, through the entirety of Oregon.
Yeah. Yeah.
A wasteland.
A wasteland. That's a little harsh.
It is, and it's an uninhabitable wasteland.
It's beautiful, though, out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of good scenery, but it is uninhabitable. But we got to do a lot more traveling.
Oh, yeah.
That's another thing that I feel going forward. It puts a lot of perspective. I feel that was one of the benefits of the Portland trip, the Portland experience, was seeing the difference in the way that the economy works, for example. Just explaining it to my brother, Flake, the other day.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, there's little nuanced things about every place that you go. You know what I mean? It just gives you a little bit more insight into the human experience, like the human social structure, in different places.
Mm-hmm.
And you even see how geographically, you know what I mean, the geopolitical environment that's created,
Mm-hmm.
And then you learn a little bit about the history of the place. And I mean, I feel like traveling does. It helps to put things more into perspective. Like, I feel like you never know. We continue doing more traveling, and we may end up in a place where we just fall in love with the place.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, more traveling.
Oh, yeah. We're definitely, I agree with that. Like, traveling has always been near and dear to my heart, mostly because I just love experiencing new cultures and new places. And one thing that I've learned is that people are the same everywhere, but they experience life differently depending on the culture that they have or their geopolitical environment, like you said. And so it's always fascinated me to look at those things in different places.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just different opportunities everywhere you go.
And now we got the space and opportunity to do that, because them people ain't going to be tying up your schedule all the time.
Right. Right. So now, obviously, moving on to bigger and better things. Um, Studying right now for to earn a career in data analytics. So yeah, I mean, looking for that entry level position.
That's yeah. It's crazy breaking into a new career, but like I feel like it's gonna be fun for you. I mean,
It's
shoot, it's fun
exciting.
for me. I think it's gonna be fun for you, and I am excited for you. Like, just I'm excited for all your new adventures and just us, how everything's about to move forward. Like, I mean, definitely still in the middle of grief. Like, as we were packing up baby stuff, as you saw, definitely still in the middle of grieving, but on the other side, because excitement and hope now lives in our home again.
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of like almost like it comes in waves. You know what I mean? And it's times where I feel like I'm going all the way back through the grief process again. And so I don't know, sometimes I ask myself, am I going to be seeing things all the time for the rest of my life? Like times where there's these things were triggered, probably like out of nowhere, something probably will trigger a memory or something. Boom, you know what I mean? But it's like a wound, you know what I mean? And over time, even my worst wounds have faded over time quite a bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, and I feel like we will always have triggers, but that doesn't mean that our response to those triggers will always be tied to a negative or such a strong emotion. Maybe we'll be triggered and it could lead to a smile in the future rather than some tears to remember her in a moment where we weren't even thinking about her.
Right. And we had took her ashes and over to that river.
Yeah, you said some beautiful words. I was still speechless. I couldn't process my grief enough to even say anything. It's it's been a whirlwind. But like I said, I finally feel like we're in a space where we can lay the whatever foundation we want to move forward, and that is an incredible power to recognize.
Yeah, I feel like we did what we needed to do, in this time. And yeah, I mean, I feel like we're getting to a point where we're starting to move forward. I mean, just like you said, coming out on the other side of the situation and looking more at the possibilities.
So I feel like yeah, moving forward, we are gonna have a couple more episodes for y'all. We definitely ain't gonna take no couple months off between the next one. You just
Right.
stay tuned, y'all. But yeah, it would be amazing if you all would join us on this journey of rebuilding this foundation and exploring what life is going to mean for us now as parents who have lost their child and are navigating that, but also a couple who is newly engaged. I don't think we discussed
Oh, yeah,
that.
yeah. That didn't come up yet.
But
Yeah.
we've had lots of ups and downs. I mean, we lost our baby, but we kept each other. And
Yeah, and we're engaged.
yeah,
Anybody that listens to us, yeah, we're engaged now. We're going to be married.
so yeah, keep up with us.
We should post that video, I guess. Maybe we'll post the video. So we'll keep everybody posted. We'll let you know in the next episode where the video is posted and where you can check it out at.
All right. Thanks for tuning back in. I hope you all are having a lovely summer, and check out that Beyonce album if you haven't. It's amazing. Hope you'll have a good time. Talk to you next time.